Hello, welcome back to the channel. I don't know if you guys have missed me because I haven't even missed me. I know it's been a while since I posted consecutive reviews, or at least for myself it feels that way, and I don't know if there's anyone out there that watches these videos and actually goes, oh, looking forward to another one of Brandon's videos. But if there are, then thank you guys for your endless support and for clicking on these videos. I know that there's only around 40 subscribers on this channel, but I feel like that's not really the biggest problem that I have making these videos. It's not that I'm discouraged by the subscriber count or whatever, but it's just the time that it takes to edit these things with the whole work-life balance and also trying to balance the things that you love to do and your hobbies. So it's just been a little bit difficult in these past couple weeks to kind of get this ball rolling consistently. But thank you guys for sending your comments and asking about if there's going to be another review, and I really appreciate that. And not necessarily comments in YouTube, but people outside who have been watching these videos and who actually like them. I really appreciate it. It means a lot that you guys even care about my opinion. And also, if you guys care to know more about some other movies that I haven't reviewed on this channel, some other movies that I've seen in the past, or just movies I felt didn't really need to be broken down in a video format, I have a Letterboxd account. So that's an app where you can go and review movies, give it a rating from 1 to 5 stars, I believe. And so it's really fun. I've been in love with it, and obviously I'm not sponsored, but you guys can go check it out. It's in the description below, where my specific, do you call it a channel or whatever, but my account. So go check that out, follow it if you like to. So yeah, anyways guys, today, actually, how could I miss this? I'm an idiot. So today, actually, some really big news is happening, and it might not be relevant to you guys, but I think that just introducing a new life into the world is an exciting thing for anyone of any kind, and that happens to be my sister, Daisha, my eldest sister. Love her to death, and she is delivering a baby today. It was news for us because the baby's supposed to come next Friday, but the baby is being delivered today, and I mean, I honestly did not expect this to be happening. It's just, it's kind of weird, I mean, I'm not the one giving birth or anything, but it's kind of, weird to be like, that's my sister, and she's bringing a life into the world. The same sister that used to make me run laps in the backyard because she thought I was getting too chubby. The same sister that I used to help pack my lunch in the morning with my other sister as well. The same sister that let me sleep in her room when I got too scared. That girl is a woman now, and she's delivering a baby, and I'm going to be the uncle to that baby. And it's just a weird, surreal kind of thing. Surreal, kind of like Quentin Tarantino's pizza rolls. That should be a thing. That should really be a thing. It's a surreal thing like Quentin Tarantino's movies. And speaking of Quentin Tarantino's movies, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came out this week, and I had the pleasure of seeing it with some friends, and let's get into it. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is directed by Quentin Tarantino and stars Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Margot Robbie, and a bunch of other people that you would be surprised that are in this movie. Just from the amount of people that are in this movie, the amount of A-list actors to D-list actors to just the array that Quentin brings on screen and how he makes them cohesive together is just one thing that I really loved about this movie. I'm coming right out of the gates. I love this movie. It's spectacular. Quentin Tarantino is one of my favorite directors, and I think that's just pretty common amongst, the general population, that Quentin Tarantino is one of the most interesting filmmakers. Also, he is one of the most, controversial directors. And this movie should be called Women's Dirty Feet, the motion picture, because Quentin Tarantino's outside life and his outside interests in feet and his well-known foot fetish is on full display in this movie. And no, this isn't a commentary on the movie. This isn't me nitpicking or anything, but it's just so blatant that it's hilarious. His foot fetish is not on display, but amongst his other things are also his stylistic choices that are actually a little bit subdued in this movie. I feel like Quentin Tarantino took an eclectic cast of characters, and he took a atmosphere of the late 1960s and early 1970s. He took that atmosphere and he ran with it, and he made a fairly straightforward movie, which obviously, knowing Quentin Tarantino, knowing the background of this story, which is around the Sharon Tate and the Manson murders, there is some revisionist history going on here. There is some creative choices that the director makes in this movie that I absolutely adored. I guess it's kind of a spoiler if I say anything about that, so I'm not going to. What I'm going to talk about is the chemistry between Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio's character. I think they bring it so hard in this movie. They are absolutely so entertaining to watch. Every time they're on screen together and they're interacting, they're just having conversation. It's just you get so sucked in, because the characters of Leonardo DiCaprio playing Rick Dalton, kind of a washed-up has-been actor who was in his prime back when he was doing this old Western TV show that everyone knows in Hollywood. And he's kind of looking for his career. He's looking for his career path, and he feels like he's kind of reached the end of the road. He feels like he's having his midlife crisis, even though he doesn't look bad at all. He's a handsome young guy, or fairly young to middle-aged guy, and he's got his whole career ahead of him, but he is so hard on himself, and he really doesn't believe that he can achieve what he wants to do in Hollywood, and he tries to seek out being noticed by other bigger celebrities, and he literally lives next to one of the biggest celebrities ever, which at the time, was one of the biggest, but also now we kind of look at him and we go, oof. Roman Polanski, I'm not going to say anything. But yeah, he tries to get the attention of some pretty big people in Hollywood, but he just has trouble breaking through. And Cliff Booth, played by Brad Pitt, is one of his best friends, but also his stunt double that he works on basically all of his projects with. And their dynamic is so funny because Leo plays this character who's so down on himself, but he's also very vain and very typical Hollywood, especially 1960s Hollywood, where it's just, he literally has a parking space with a mural of his face, and Brad Pitt just blindly does anything that he tells him to, because you can just see that long relationship that they've had working on all these movies together, that it's this kind of unbroken bond where you wouldn't think that these two people would get along so well, but they do. It's just this unspoken bond throughout this movie that really sells a lot of the dialogue that Quentin Tarantino is really known for. However, Quentin Tarantino's dialogue isn't at full display in this movie. There's a lot of slow moments, a lot of moments where they're just driving, and I mean, lots of moments of them just driving in these beautiful cars from the 1960s through beautiful West Hollywood in the late 1960s. It's just all about capturing that atmosphere of that time, really getting you involved with that city, with old Hollywood, I guess. And by the middle part of the movie, you definitely feel it. And so anytime that these characters are interacting in this environment, you feel like this is a snapshot of that time. And a lot of people could say it's a love letter to the 1960s and the early 70s. You could say that, but I really feel like this is Quentin looking at his filmography and saying, this is the era that most of my films have been inspired by, which also shows Bruce Lee, which is one of his most attributed characters in a lot of his movies, such as Mia from Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, how her outfit kind of is an homage to Bruce Lee. He's actually in this movie, and throughout the movie he's kind of, he shows up every now and then, and the actor is fantastic for that, but that's a whole nother side thing. But it's about capturing that time, and it really just wraps you in Quentin's style. We know his style is frenetic, and we know that his style cuts a lot and has crash zooms all the time, and those are kind of the things that we expect in a Tarantino movie, but this movie kind of takes its time, and I can tell that maybe a lot of people wouldn't like that, like I was talking about before, if I don't keep going on tangents, but like I was saying before, some of the dialogue in this movie isn't as snappy and it isn't as quick as a typical Tarantino movie, but it's still interesting and it still builds the characters. And the characters of Rick Dalton and Cliff Booth are super interesting because throughout the movie you begin to notice little things about them. You get to notice that how they interact with one another and why this relationship was built just through the way that they interact with one another. And it's super interesting how a director can kind of capture that with little to no words, with just physicality or with just a little glance here and there. So yeah, this is just kind of me rambling about how much I love Tarantino. But then again, I cannot go talk about this movie without kind of admitting that the first 2/3 of this movie felt very slow. And while I appreciated a lot of it, and while I did love any time that Brad Pitt and Leo were on screen, and also the times that Sharon Tate, played by Margot Robbie, were on screen, were on screen, I loved it. And that's the other thing, is you love it, but also between that, it's just, you feel like they are really trying to make you feel like this is 1960s Hollywood, and you can't help but go, okay, I got places to go, man. Like, this is beautiful. I really feel like you captured this era, but like, can we just move this thing along? And I know it's a lot about character building, but there are characters that show up in this movie that don't really pay off, that don't really return. They're kind of there for the main three characters to interact against and kind of be like, look at this celebrity who existed at this time. It's kind of weird where they just have cameos from random celebrities that don't really pay off anything. They're just there to say a line of dialogue. And there's also other characters throughout the movie that are just there to service as, a joke, which, could go over some people's heads who, people wouldn't care about that. But I'm just saying, if I really have to nitpick this movie, which I loved, if I haven't said it before, which I definitely have, but I love this movie. But you can't help but look at these little things and be like, okay, it could have been better. This could have been cut. This could have been taken out and would have improved the length of this movie, because this movie's at around 2 hours and 40 minutes. And you definitely feel that time. But the last third of this movie and how it builds up, it's fucking crazy. So good. It's probably one of my favorite moments in film this entire year. I haven't jumped out of my seat and been like on the edge of my seat and kind of just holding my hands together and kind of sweating and nervous, but also laughing and having like a painful laughter coming up from my diaphragm since Blind Spotting, which was one of my favorite movies from last year. It just kind of got me so hyped up, and I was like, this is classic Tarantino, but this is also why we go to the movies. And I posted on my Instagram this really vague review, I guess, just a sentence saying, this is a goddamn movie. And I don't know how else to describe Once Upon a Time in Hollywood other than this is a goddamn movie. Like, this is why we go to the theaters. We go to see something interesting, something unique. We go to see a director's vision come to screen, and that's one thing that Tarantino has always been doing. He doesn't give a fuck about what anyone has to say. He doesn't care what execs have to say. He loves classic Hollywood. He loves doing homages to that era, but he also addresses things that are pretty controversial just head on, and not addresses it as in he says, well, let's sit down, well, let's talk about racism. No, he's just like, this is how people talked at that time. No shit, let's just get right into it, because fuck it, I'm making my movie. And that's the thing that I've always kind of loved about Tarantino, controversy aside. So him as a director, it's always interesting to watch, and he made a goddamn movie. I can't say it enough. So, man, I would give this movie a definite 9 point. Whew, man, this is hard. He's made some 10s, for sure. Not quite a 10. And I'm not going to go into what he kind of revises in the movie, or revises in terms of history. But I think if you've watched enough Tarantino movies, you would know what might happen. You might kind of catch on while you're watching the movie. But if not, I'm just going to reserve that for myself, because it was a fucking treat. But anyways, I would give this movie a 9.6 out of 10. It is a splendid movie. One of my favorite just movie-going experiences this year. Didn't need to be 3D, didn't need to be flashy, didn't need to have a superhero wear. I'm not knocking on superheroes. I love that shit. That's my game. But like, this was just super refreshing. God, go watch it. What are you doing? What are you doing watching this video? Go watch the movie. Unless you've already watched the movie, then thank you for coming along. So anyways, guys, I'm super excited to meet my niece today. Julia is going to be beautiful, and my sister is a strong person, and I know that labor is hard, one time I got kicked in the nuts, and let me tell you, I think I know a thing or two. So, anyways, guys, I will see you later.